Hello everybody, my name is Lynn Ismail and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about plants that I planted for cut flower production that I've discovered to be drought tolerant, and some of them, most of them, are rabbit resistant. First, straw flowers. Straw flowers are cool season flowers that have papery petals that dry up very well. You can use them fresh, or if you're looking at doing crafts in the winter, or maybe saving a few bunches, growing several straw flowers over a season and saving them as bunches for an event the following year, that would be a great reason to grow them too. They come in a multitude of colors, but my favorites are salmon pink and bright pink. You can easily start them from seeds, and I do plant them out at least 6 weeks before my last frost. So starting around late March. I had planted them in a full sun spot with no irrigation. The only type of irrigation that it got was the rain, and they've done pretty well. I also like that they have a long harvest period, depending on how you want to use it. If you want to cut them for drying, I tend to want to cut them when you don't see the pollen just yet. Once the pollens are visible, they keep opening up while they're drying. So they're fine for fresh flower arrangement with the pollen open, but for dry flowers, you want them closed up. For fresh flower arrangements, you have a pretty wide, maybe 2 weeks, from my experience anyway, 2 weeks to get them cut for fresh flowers to get a good base life. It's just that when you notice that the center starts getting dark, then they've already turned to seeds. So not that you can't, probably don't, but you probably don't want to use them for flower arrangements. So that's number one, straw flowers. Number two, marigolds. 2023 was the first season I planted marigolds, and I tried cocoa yellow marigold and burning embers. It's the single petal red marigold that has long stems. I tried growing the burning embers one this year, but the seeds that I got were old. Well, because I bought them 2 years ago, and so they did not germinate. But this year I got cocoa yellow, cocoa orange, no, cocoa gold, and the lemon star gem and the tangerine gem. Those were magnificent. They start blooming around August, but so is everything else. So you don't really appreciate the color and the texture of their flowers until everything else is gone. The lemon star and the tangerine gem, rabbits practically left them alone, and you don't really need deadheading them because they just keep on growing. They are about 12 inches tall, and if you don't stake them, they lay flat and grow like in a curve. There's a term for that. It's a geotrophic tendency of the flower of the plant to grow up when they they get flattened. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, lemon star and tangerine gem, really small flowers, a little bit strong and fragrance, but it's really nice in small bouquet arrangements. Maybe not the tall ones because they have short stems, but for mason jar arrangements, I think they look nice, and they are very handy in the landscape as well because you see little dots of yellow flowers. I guess that's where the name comes from, little stars of color in the landscape, and that's what they are. The cocos, they're huge. They're like this big. Even when if you water them, they'll be bigger than this, bigger than my fist. But even with minimal watering, they're still huge. They look like mums, and they have that bright pop of color. Now, in terms of rabbit resistance, it's not the rabbit's favorite, but if they're curious, they'll try to snip off the flower heads. That's okay. They're very productive, and they'll just keep growing buds. So they deadheaded them for you. Marigolds are tender annuals, so you would want them to be planted after frost, after your first frost. So here in southwestern Ontario, that's around June, and they do dry very nicely as well. At least the African marigolds, the cocoa gold and cocoa yellow. what they were as a fresh flower is the same color as dried. So if you're looking for that vibrant punch of color, dried, grab yourself some cocoa golds and yellows. Maybe now there's the deep gold. Tried one. I'm gonna try that one too. Next, scabiosa. I planted a few Black Knight scabiosa in the landscape this year, and I really quite enjoyed it. They are a little bit labor intensive if you cut them for production as a cut flower, but that's just some airy looking pom-pom drifting in the wind in your garden, they're perfect. I am surprised that rabbits didn't touch them and that they didn't really require much water from me. I mean, it did rain a little bit. It did rain a lot this summer. This fall has been quite dry, and they're still doing okay. So I recommend scabiosa if you're looking for drought tolerant, rabbit tolerant plants, flowers that you can use as cut flowers. And they come in a multitude of colors as well. This year I did Black Knight. I really like those ones. But you have salmon, you have blues, you have whites, or maybe cream, and red, and there's Merlot, which is like wine. That's number 3, scabiosa. Number 4, rudbeckias. Rudbeckias, also commonly known as black-eyed Susans or brown-eyed Susans, depending on where you are. They're surprisingly drought tolerant. Not necessarily rabbit resistant, because they don't like their leaves, but they like the flowers, or they can tolerate the flowers. So if you're gonna plant them in areas that are grazed by rabbits, make sure they're protected, because they're very pretty flowers. They come in with a lot of varieties, and within those varieties they have different colors, like Sahara. In that packet of Sahara that I got, I had one that had bright. I saved some seeds of them. One that's more like rainbow with raspberry and yellow. Lemon raspberry. It's like a sundae of lemons and raspberry. That's what I would describe that color. I had really nice rosy, dusty rosy mauve. I had more like a coffee, cappuccino-ish, multi-layered colors. There's a lot of them. So if you want to get a seed packet that has multiple variations, multiple varieties of floral forms, try some rudbeckias. You might like it. Not the best, maybe not the best for dried flowers. I mean, just based on my experience, I don't know if other people are using it for dried flowers too. But for fresh cut flowers, you want them cut when all the petals are open and the stem is a little bit dirtier. And you also use CBBN to hydrate them properly and make sure that bacteria doesn't stick to the stems, the cut stems, because otherwise they won't be able to absorb the water properly. And if they don't absorb water properly, they won't. Rudbeckia, very great cut flower. I mean, it will be better if it has consistent watering, but it does well without water. So especially the Denver, Colorado, or the Denver Daisy one, Denver Daisy variety. They grow tall, lots of blooms, no watering. They did well. And last but not least, fat-faced Kufia. These ones have self-seeded for me from last year. They don't get a lot of water, but they just keep on blooming and producing some seeds. So they do well as a foliage interest or something sparkly or a floral arrangement, but to keep the plant fresh, you have to keep deadheading it. Otherwise, you have a long branch of flowers otherwise you have a long stem with dead flowers in the middle, and those dead flowers will become seeds and sprinkle, which is fine if that's what you want. But if you want to minimize that for next year, collect the seeds or dispose of them before they turn to seeds, or just cut them before they turn to seeds. Make them into flower arrangements. They are loved by a lot of pollinators. Bees, bumblebees, mason bees. Mason bees like to puncture the base, I noticed, because they're too big to suck it from the little bell. Hummingbirds love them. Probably the most favorite plants aside from Cosmia that I've noticed hummingbirds love. So that's number 5, fat-faced Kufia. There you go. 5 plants that are drought tolerant, some rabbit tolerant, that have flowers you can easily use for floral arrangements. You've reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do try to show up here every Thursday. It is now Friday, so I'm gonna be uploading this on a Saturday, but I'm trying to do this every Thursday. So till I see you again. Bye for now.